Hello, everyone, and welcome to this gathering where we are exploring Indigenous justice and healing through the Healing Fund initiative supported by United Church Women. It is good to be together. My name is Adele Halliday. I serve at the General Counsel Office as the Anti-Racism and Equity Lead Staff, and I coordinate the 40 Days of Engagement on Anti-Racism. So this event is one in a series around the 40 days. So welcome if you are coming to this for the first time, and if you've been here for the other events in the series, it is good to see you again. Just a little bit, we'll go to the next slide, just a little bit about the 40 days of 40 days of engagement on anti-racism. I'm going to show you a picture of the website. This is our landing page for the 40 days. Here you can find everything that you might need about this fulsome program. So the live events that are happening every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, as well as the recordings, how to access the recordings from the video. There are a series of videos each week as well that are 1 minute and 3 minute long. We'll watch one of those videos shortly. A downloadable folder with materials for congregations that have prayers, worship prompts, ideas for study groups, and more, books from the bookstore, the anti-racism newsletter, and much more. So all of those are on the landing page for the 40 days of engagement on anti-racism. If you go to united-church.ca and just search for 40 days, you'll find yourself here where you can access anything that you might need related to this fulsome program. As I mentioned, there are a number of videos that are available for throughout the week. And this week, today, we'd love to show you one of those videos. This video is from Hayran Kim Craig, who is sharing some of her own experiences with racism and anti-racism. So here's Hayran.
Let me share two stories. Both come from a church I was part of many moons ago. It was diverse. It was a very affirming congregation. There was a strong leader in that church, highly educated, theologically trained. I admire her intellect, her dedication, and her leadership. Over the years, we built a very good relationship. One Sunday after service, she asked how my family was doing. She said she was very worried. She heard about the tsunami in Asia. It took a moment before I realized she meant the Philippines. Her concern was genuine, but it stung. After all these years, I thought that she knew me. I'm Korean. How could she not know that difference? Under the Western white gaze, Asia became one blurred place. Its vastness, its diversity erased. Was it too much to expect her to know that Asia is not a country, but the largest, most populated, most diverse continent on Earth? Her innocent ignorance made my Korean identity invisible. And I've heard many friends of African descent talk about the ignorance they also faced. Racism breathes well in ignorance. White Eurocentrism thrives when differences are dismissed. Here is a second story. The same church welcomed many newcomers, including Korean immigrants. One member, a white lesbian who had helped lead the affirming process, told the committee that she felt unsafe around the Korean members. She assumed that they were homophobic. She didn't ask. She didn't know them. She just assumed because they were Korean. Her fear othered them. It told them that they don't belong. But some of those newcomers were queer themselves. Being a multiple minority means facing layered oppression. The work of anti-racism is to cast out fear. Before we other the racialized, we must check our own biases, our own privileges. Instead of judging, get to know their stories, learn their language, understand their lived experience, including their queer racialized experience. Resist othering, build relationships, keep learning, unlearning, and relearning. Keep your fear down, raise your curiosity up. Practice intersectionality.
So many thanks to Hayran for her words. We will offer now a prayer that Hayran has written, and then we'll move into our focus for the evening on healing funds. Friends, let us pray together. Dear God of beauty, we give thanks to you for creating each of us in your image. We give thanks to you for celebrating our differences and our dignity. We acknowledge that we have not lived up to your dreams. Instead of honoring each other's dignity, we use race to belittle one another. Instead of learning about each other's differences, we hurry to judge. Our subtle and not so subtle ignorance and indifference to racism has harmed those who bear the stigma of race. Give us perspective to notice patterns of exclusion and discrimination. Give us spirits to listen to those who are impacted by myriad pricks, stabs, bullets, and bombs of racism. Grant us wisdom to notice interlocking oppressions of racism. Grant us minds to discern and detect the complexity of racism. Grant us words to utter a truth in a form of repentance. Grant us bodies to move in and resist in a form of solidarity. Grant us openness to learn new insights that affirm, respect, and liberate. Grant us humility to unlearn things that oppress, exclude, and discriminate. Grant us hearts to open and relearn old wisdom from our ancestors. Send us your wind, Ruha, and blow away the toxicity of racism in all its forms. Pour out your spirit, Ruha, of justice and love on our communities, so that racism would not poison us or divide us any longer. Transform us and help us to build an anti-racist world and live out your vision. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thanks again to Hayran for those words. So now it is with great pleasure that we introduce or move into our focus for the evening around exploring Indigenous justice through the Healing Fund programs. And would like to introduce to you Joni Shawana, who is the Healing Fund Program Coordinator in the Indigenous Ministries and Justice Unit at the General Council Office, and Barbara Jajit, who is the National President for the United Church Women, and they will be leading our session this evening. So warm welcome to Joni and Barbara. They will also introduce themselves more fully in a moment.
Thank you, Adele. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, my first time doing a presentation. Well, Brian said I did one last year. So this my second time doing a presentation here. And it's my first time doing a presentation with our supporting partners, Barbara Dajit with the National UCW. My arrow doesn't want to show up here. I like to start off my presentations with the Ojibwe Kujip Nemewans, which is the Ojibwe morning prayer. I'll just speak it in Anishnawbe. The English is there for you to read, and I'll explain a little bit about this after I'm done. Miigwech Kujaminado, Kinage Go Gaji Toin. Miigwech Mishomiskizis, Gibi We Jayen Nangwa. Miigwech Nokomis Debik Gizis, Gibi We Jayen Na Debikak. Miigwech Kakamekwe Gimi Jiang, Gimi Jiang, Bematsuwin, Gimi Jiang Mijem, Gimi Jiang Nibish, Gimi Jiang Wesenyak, Meanwhile, Gimi Jiang Wesenwin, Nesewin, Sema Nabaganana, Gewednang, Wabanang, Jawanang, Meanwhile, Epnikishmak. Not emotion, Jamoshkabwea, Minwa, Jajot Deeya, Miigwech Gajamadido. So that's a prayer that my uncle wrote years ago, and I have yet been able to fully say it without reading it. To me, it's really hard for me to remember some of the words and also the pronunciation. And the reason why I like starting with that is because it gives you firsthand um, knowledge to know that that's how far our language has been taken away from us, which stems from the residential schools. My grandparents were at residential schools. They didn't talk and speak the language to, well, my dad was spoken the language to, but my mom wasn't spoken the language to. And um, we were pretty much I was pretty much brought up amongst with my mom full time, so that language wasn't always taught to me and always spoken to me. I wasn't with my dad full time, but when we did come and visit, he'd always tried to speak the language, but I didn't understand. And when we weren't able to understand, um, my dad or other aunties and uncles and grandparents, we were just called they're too city Indian now. Yeah, because we removed ourselves from living on reserve, and I pretty much grew up in Toronto, um, from childhood right up to adulthood. Um, so yeah, I like starting off with that, just so you see the challenges that I have on trying to um, speak and learn the language, and it gives me the opportunity to talk about the that injustice that our people have of that language was taken away from us, that culture was taken away from us, and that it is a slow and a gradual healing process for all of us to get back and to start learning language. And that's one of the things that my uncle strives for is to it's all about repetition, repetition. And I just like reciting that prayer. And I think if I recite it more often, I would actually remember it and I wouldn't need it to be on the screen. But yeah, so I like starting off with that. Aside from that, my name is Joni Shawana. Norin Dishnaka Shike Dodem. My spirit name is Wind, and I'm from the Turtle Clan. I'm the healing program coordinator with the Indigenous Ministries and Justice, and I've been with the team since 2022. I do come from a background of a mixture of teaching culture, communications, and working within the community. So I like to say I'm the three C's: community, culture, communications. And it's really great that this opportunity with being the healing program coordinator, I get to blend all of that because I get to talk about my culture. I get to talk about our people. I get to teach in that way, but I also get to network and communicate and work with the communities of faith, Indigenous, and also be here as a educator to the non-Indigenous church as well. So that's me. I will let Barbara introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Barb DeJeet. I'm the new president of National UCW, and I'm from Brockville, Ontario. I've been with the UCW since 95. I've gone through all levels, and president is a wonderful position, I think. I'm going to need lots of prayers for the next couple of years. But working with Joni on the Healing Fund has really broadened my horizons of what the UCW can do for our Indigenous friends. And the council statement is what struck me as what the UCW stands for and what we can do. They say our goal, first of all, Jesus said, suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom of heaven. And the goal of the council is to reach out to all Indigenous communities who've been affected by residential school and its intergenerational impacts. We walk and we encourage all those who want to find healing emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And we, as United Church Women across Canada and Bermuda, hope that the funds that we raise and give to the Healing Fund will help our Indigenous friends.
Thank you much,
Thank you.
Barbara. So, as Adele mentioned earlier, today's focus is exploring the Indigenous justice and healing through Healing Fund initiatives supported by the United Church of Women. So, just a this was my Google definition of Indigenous justice refers to a system of injustice that is culturally relevant, restorative, and holistic, and that addresses the systematic discrimination and overrepresentation in Indigenous people in mainstream justice system. It also involves incorporating Indigenous values, laws, supporting community-based programs, and providing culturally component services to address root causes of crime, promote healing, and improve outcomes of Indigenous individuals, families, and communities. And I said, healing our intergenerational trauma. So everything everything all starts from somewhere. Everything has a beginning. And a lot of this the injustices and the things that we deal with it stems from the residential schools. Everything, people lived in harmony, people lived on the land, people lived in health, eating all the natural stuff that we have. It was until everything else was introduced to our people and brought here to the lands that things just started happening. Languages taken away, the culture taken away, new foods being introduced to us, which making us become unhealthy, new drinks being introduced to us, and people started relying on these drinks, referring to alcohol, to hide their emotions and their feelings, you know, from either being neglected or being abused growing up. So there's a whole lot of different things, and there's always it's a root from something. And a lot of people like to say, oh, that's happened a long time ago, or get over it, or that was your grandparents, or that wasn't me, that was my ancestors. You know what? It's all intergenerational. Just like I said in the beginning, my grandparents went to the residential schools. The language was taken away, the culture was taken away. Some of them were even removed from the reserve, and some of them went out west and never came back home. So there's all that separation from families too. So that's one thing, is like the intergenerational trauma. Is the Healing Fund supports and provides community-based programs to help with the healing and dealing with the root causes of their traumas, of things that they deal with. We'll talk about a couple of initiatives that the Healing Fund has supported, and with the support of the UCW. I'll talk about a couple of those in a bit. So healing looks different amongst different communities, right? Every nation, every community, every person has a different way of healing. And in the Healing Fund, in the Healing Fund has supported healing circles, sharing circles, programs for residential school survivors and their children and their grandchildren. There's been workshops, training for elders and resource people, counselors, and parents. So one of the ones I found was really fond of was that in Saskatchewan, there was a community that acknowledged and realized that a lot of grandparents are raising their grandkids because their children are lost. Their children, are dealing with what they got to deal with. But the thing is a lot of the grandparents don't have those uh, I guess different skills on learning how to deal with their grandchildren. So this one program offered like mental health first aid for their grandparents to learn, and learning how to work with their children and their grandchildren, and how to communicate and interact with them. Even basic first aid. Some grandparents expressed that they didn't know how to know the basic first aids, you know so that was like some kind of workshops that was able to bring the children and grandchildren and the grandparents together. There's been a lot of traditional cultural events, including gatherings of children, of a lot of elders and youth coming together. um, Residential school reunions, not so much of like a great big high school reunion. You're like, yay! It's a lot of like moment of reflecting, a lot of honor, song, prayer, and remembering those that didn't make it home, and continuing praying for healthy healing for those that are at home and their grandchildren. Language and cultural recovery programs, that's a lot of the programs that the Healing Fund support. A lot of BC programs, and then a lot of these programs create resources. So when I started, there was resources of creating CDs. Now it's like nobody uses CDs too much anymore nowadays. So it's a lot of like online content. We haven't, no recent ones have been able to support we haven't had no submissions for new digital content, but I know it's out there somewhere. And there's healing for young people and two-spirit people. So there was a two-spirit powwow that was hosted in Saskatchewan in 2022 as well. So in 2025, we had received 36 Healing Fund applications. That was for the spring and fall. And we're allowed to fund up to 300,000 for the year. And with the support from UCW, that allows us to fund an extra couple of projects throughout their 5-year duration. So far we have approved 20 initiatives for healing initiatives for 2025. Some given in about 270,000. So it all depends on the asks from agents from communities. Some communities only ask for 5,000, 8,000, and their duration of programs vary from like a weekend camp or, a 2-week camp or biweekly programs. So it all depends on what their community needs are and how often they want to offer a program. But since 2012, that's the furthest my data sheet goes. But I know the Healing Fund was established in 1994. But the stats that I have, there's been over 300 healing initiatives since 2012, bringing approximately about 3.6 million. But if we go back to 94, you could imagine that those numbers are a lot higher. And I'm only going to assume just because in the 90s, the data and collecting and Excels, they weren't as popular. Um, but yeah, so that's the data sheet that I have up to. So I've come up with a couple of questions to ask Barbara on what inspired the National UCW to support the Healing Fund. I know in the beginning you mentioned the quote and the purposes and the goals of both UCW and the Healing Fund. But I like when, yeah, I'll leave this one for you. Your sound.
There we go. Sorry about that. Every 5 years, National UCW has a new initiative with partners of the United Church of Canada. And we do go worldwide. 5 years ago, we helped women in Zambia. And before that, we helped women in other countries to support them, support the women and the children. So when this initiative came up and it was brought to us by the United Church of Canada, we wanted to keep it local, as in Canada, and we knew about the residential schools. We knew the problems our Indigenous people were having. So we decided to vote on the Healing Fund to help mothers and children and families to get grounded in what they have missed.
When did this partner, well, we've already mentioned the partnership began in, I'll answer this one, in 2022. And as Barbara mentioned, is that they support the initiative for 5 years. So we are with the support from UCW up until 2027. And so far, we've already been able to support 3 healing initiatives. Our working group approves, or they select, sorry, go to they select one applicant that focuses on the women and children and family programs out of the group of applicants that we get. So in the springtime, the working group selects a new initiative. So how has the UCW support impacts the justice and healing of Indigenous people and communities through the gifts? I think we've mentioned that, but if you have anything to add to
it. United Church women, we're go-getters, and we like to help those that are less fortunate than us. We have local Indigenous people everywhere we live. Some of the churches have them, and we make sure that they know that we are supporting them in whatever way they need to be supported through the Healing Fund, that they can apply as well to get support. UCW stands for justice, and not only for the white people, like was mentioned before, but for all people. We have 4 pillars in our promise. And it's worship, stewardship. Oh dear, now it's gone from me. Worship, study, education. And so we become educated women through the Healing Fund and the information that we get, and we give it out to other people. In some of the meetings we get together, we bring people who have been affected and who have latched on to the initiatives that we've done, and they tell us their stories on how National UCW has helped them. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. I'll share one of those beautiful stories of how different UCW groups came together to support the Regina Native Outreach Ministries. So to date, since the UCW has become supporters to the Healing Fund, to date, there's been about 73,000 in gifts collected by UCW groups and given to the Healing Fund. It has started in the late 2022. We didn't have a chance, we weren't able to select an initiative until the spring 2023, just because that was the next rollout round for applications. So we have the Regina Native Outreach Ministries. I'm going to talk about each of them separately in a bit. We also have the Fort McKay Métis Nation Association, who did a Healing in the Kitchen program. And we also have currently Reflections Na Nan Dewe Jik Bejagojik program, Healing Grief in Families Impacted by Substance Abuse. So those are the current initiatives, and then we'll have a new one selected in the spring. And I believe my next slides is talking individually about each of the programs. So the Regina Native Outreach Ministries had a mother and baby welcome bag program. And it was to address the ongoing impacts of intergenerational trauma caused by residential schools. The mothers, Indigenous mothers who gave birth, were subject to racism and discrimination in violation of their rights. There was birth alerts issued when the moms went into the hospitals, and when staff identified a mother as being it was staff who identified a mother as being unstable to care for their baby. And these are the kind of same messages that were inflicted on Indigenous girls throughout residential schools as well. Currently, a lot of this is known as the 60 scoop or the millennial scoop. And the one of the objectives was to assure Indigenous mothers that there are people in the community who care about them, and to provide them some basic elements for the moms as they leave the hospital, to hopefully bridge them with new supports and additional supports that would help them with their motherhood and with the baby. It was to increase awareness of the injustices committed against Indigenous mothers through hosting a knitting circle to make baby blankets and for the mom and baby welcome bags. They held this twice a month, and this was through a partnership, not a partnership, but a way that this program brought people together. The Central Library offered a space to do these knitting circles. And it was also a time for the mothers to come together to do peer support and to support each other. Just like food always brings people together. So it's my understanding there was like bannock and tea. There was groups like that with some snacks for the moms too. So board members were making traditional medicine pouches. So there was that cultural component to these bags being given to the mums, along with the medicine pouches. So the mums would be able to use that tobacco for their prayers. Whether if they want to go by the river or the tree, it's just it grounded them to something natural, to something holistic, to something that was culturally oriented and just to ground themselves. So they were provided those bags, and it also had support cards in there. So who to contact, their local ministers and things like that for additional support. Um, they wanted to join other organizations to enact changes in the best interest of the new moms. So yeah, this was beginning meetings with other organizations who could advocate for their moms. One of the cool things that came out of this, and I really like this connection that happened, is that a group out in New Nova Scotia, I believe, or New Brunswick. It was another UCW group. They found out about the mother and baby bag program. They had a knitting circle out on their end, and they made shawls. So even though they were, they weren't blankets, but they said they were long enough and they were a good size for moms to wrap the babies in and keep them warm. So they donated. I connected them with the Regina Outreach, and that congregation out in the East Coast shipped all those shawls, homemade knitted shawls, all the way to Regina for this program. So those shawls were able to make it into these bags. So I really liked how that connection, it wasn't just about a monetary gift. It was another program that they met intentionally to sew and to do crafts, and it just made its way to the moms and the baby bags. So this list here just talks about how things were done. They were done on a monthly basis. They prepared medicines in bundles and they did assembly groups. It includes smudge kits, so sage was a part of that medicine bag as well. Um, so the group didn't specifically give them specifically to the mom themselves, like in the room, just because of confidentiality and privacy issues. Um, the agency, the Regina Native Outreach Ministries gave all the bags quarterly to the hospital, and then the hospital would have them stored someplace or their social worker, and they would give them bags to the mom. So yeah, there was at least 120 total made in that year. So yeah, they had information cards and to access spiritual support to the elders. So Fort McKay was the program for spring 2024. This was out in Alberta. So they delivered workshops such as herbal medicine, plant healing, healing practices through storytelling, Métis jigging, and movement therapy. Um, they had holistic healing, traditional healing from loss, self-care, healthy living, and they worked with youth in the community to do art therapy and building healthy families, which over 140 participants engaged across all the sessions. They were well received and they increased cultural connection, emotional healing, and a sense of community solidarity. So they achieved their goals by healing and reconciliation with storytelling and medicine wheel holistic healing. Cultural identity and resilience. So workshops like Métis jigging and movement therapy. So movement therapy is the dance, right? So when you're doing your jigging, you're doing some nice moves and dancing, and I'm sure there's a lot of therapy in that movement as well. Art therapy, all of this provided experience to strengthens all the participants' cultural identity and pride. Holistic well-being, so there was self-care and healthy living and traditional healing from loss emphasize I'm not reading properly. Healing from loss emphasize balanced approach to health. So there was a lot of personal self-care workshops coming out of that as well. And one of these this program had a lot of elders and youth coming together. It says healing in the kitchen. They met other places. They met around a fire. They met at the kitchen. They met in culture rooms. They met in lodges, and they did all these different things together. And that's one of the things is food always brought people together too. So I know they were teaching how to cook traditional soups, harvesting from the land as well, and making bannock. So community resilience, that's where the communal meals came in, and it built and fostered relationships and kind of brought communities together. And then amongst all these different groups, there's always that knowledge sharing. Bringing the elders and the youth together, that's where the intergenerational sharing comes in. So it gave the opportunity for youth to get to know their culture, their identity, and to empower themselves. This project addressed the intergenerational impacts of residential schools by creating that culturally safe and supportive environment for healing and connection with Métis traditions. Through the workshops and shared experiences, participants had opportunities to process and heal from historical traumas that continue to affect their lives and their community. This project creates space for intergenerational healing, enabling survivors and their descendants to honor their experience while fostering a stronger, more resilient community. Here's the current initiative reflections. Um, I'm not one to, I always try to say the word, even though like I said, I'm not fluent. Na, non, the way, je, gig, bejugoji, jik. Jik, yes. So what exactly means, I have no idea, but I know it talks about the healing with horses. And I know one thing with that word, bejugoji, jik, that just talks about the one nail. So our language is very it's not like when you say the sunset, you're not just saying the sunset. You're actually acknowledging and noticing what's happening with the sun. So you're actually saying the sun that meets the land. Bedaben, right? So there's just more to the our language than it's not like a Webster dictionary. So when they identify a horse, that's that hoof. Bejik. Bejik is one, the gijik is a nail. So that's what they call a horse is the one nail, and that's that hoof of the horse. So a little bit of language learning here. That's what I've learned. So this program, there's a lot written here. I'll also share these slides with Adele if anybody's interested in a little bit more. But the whole idea of this program was bringing in youth and learning how to heal themselves, their grief and the loss, learning about dealing and dealing with their mental health challenges of trauma, depression, anxiety, and connecting with those horses. They foster personal growth and communication and confidence while addressing the intergenerational traumas. So they had individual and group therapy sessions to come and meet the Ojibwe horses. They also had opportunity to teach life skills of using horses to individuals who are struggling with mental health. Horses by nature develop coping strategies with confidence and are capable of reading and becoming aware of how a person is feeling before an individual even understands it themselves. I went to the farm and I got to meet the horses, and I'll be sharing that video shortly. And when I went there, I could honestly say I don't like horses. I was always scared of horses, so I was afraid of approaching them. And the horses sensed that. So when I got there, one horse like later on, one horse like literally like did the whole day thing and he got up on his legs and then I was like, oh, he must sense my fear because it kind of threw him out of whack a little bit. But then the little small Ojibwe horses came around and of course there's me. It brought me down a little bit and because they were just cute, they were short. And I noticed that even my energy changed being in those stables. And the owner of the farm, she's like, the horses know. She's like, they know. That one knew that you're afraid, but these little ones came in to calm you. So that's what that means there is that the horses have these coping strategies to help you deal with these emotions. So they offered equine therapy sessions. In the summer, they had two or three youth sessions that lasted duration of 2 3 days. It all depends. One was 2 days, the other was 4 days. So this was an initiative that was supported by the UCW for this year. So it dealt with a lot of grief and substance abuse because it's common impacts of residential schools and how it affects our communities through this intergenerational trauma. So the projects, they were open to all men, women, and youth. And I know it is a great program. I've got to speak to a couple of the youth, and the youth were just flabbergasted, and they just enjoy being there because not only did I get to go there to um, do a therapy session or anything like that, but the kids got to learn how to care for the horses. I seen them put out water, they did the food, they brushed them, right? So they got to take care of the horses in that sense as well. The retreats, it gave the opportunity for participants to have a safe space to process their emotions, to connect with themselves and the nature, and to find that solstice and, having a supportive community. Being on that farm, it was really relaxing because it's an older house. And then when you walk in that house, everything is older, like cabin-like in the house. And they got those old stoves, cast iron stoves, and they still use it. And just being in that space, there was another room that was just their craft room. So it was really comfortable. It was really warming just to be on the farm. And then to go out to the where the horses were at, going along the way, they had tiny homes or cabins and a lodge. So there's a lot of different things that's happening on the farm. They had a teepee set up as well. So I asked if these other spaces are open for youth that come and the families that come here, and they said yes, everything here is open for them. They'll come in and have tea. They'll come in and do some craft works, or they'll go sit in the lodge and have training, not training session, but their grief sessions and having talking circles. So having a visit at the farm was really good for me to see hands-on of um, what this program offers and what it means to people. So participants began to heal from grief and identify their healthy coping strategies, acknowledge and understand the impact and recognizing the emotional toll of loved ones' addiction and how it affects their families, dynamics, balance, and healing. It allowed them to reconnect with the spirit, the self, using equine assistant activities to promote emotional regulation, boundary settings, and creating healthy relationships. Honoring traditional knowledge and integrating Indigenous teaching ceremonies and storytelling in their healing journey. So I mentioned all of this already, but it's the objectives of the program was to heal grief and loss, that emotional resilience, understanding the impact of addictions and strengthening culture connections and creating that supportive community. Their website is here. Once again, I'll share the slides with Adele. So this is some of the photos that were taken over the summer. Um, you see the elders there with the youth. You see older adults. You see the youth. Now at the bottom, where the all the horses, I mean, all the hands are on that horse. That's one of the things that the owner, Marcia, encourages you to do is they put tobacco, and tobacco is a really sacred plant for us. Tobacco um, is like our telephone between us and the Creator. You know, the eagle is why we hold the eagle into high honors because that eagle is the one that flies the highest, and that eagle is the one that takes our prayers up above. Here, the children, the youth are laying that tobacco on that horse, and you're talking to that horse and asking for your prayers, asking the horse for your prayers, asking that horse to heal whatever it is that you need to heal. You could say it out loud or you could just feel it. The horse knows. You could just feel it, and then you let that tobacco sit on the horse and it goes where it needs to go. So that's that cultural connection that the youth have with the horse as well. And it's really like you open up the gate to go see the horses in their I don't know what you call it. They're not the stable, but they're where they run around. I don't know what's it called. But
Corral.
the what?
The corral.
The corral, yes. There's a bag of tobacco that sits there at the gate. So that's one of the very first things, if you're Anishnawbe or you live this way, you know what that tobacco is. You just take it, say your prayer, go see that horse. But these are things that you just learn and you learn and you
Hmm.
develop over time. No difference from when you walk into a church and if there's holy water there, what do? Right? Same thing. We grab that tobacco and we make our prayers. So this is a video that I prepared over the springtime, and IT department helped me edit it, and it talks about the Reflections Healing with Horses program.
Reflections, Nana and Wagajig, Bejigugajik, Healing Horses. We offer a unique, horse-assisted approach to helping individuals overcome mental health challenges, like trauma, depression, and anxiety. Our program fosters personal growth, communication, and confidence, while addressing intergenerational trauma. We provide individual and group therapy sessions, along with welcoming visitors to meet our Ojibwe spirit horses.
Ani Bojo, my name is Marsha Manitoulin. I'm a social worker and equine assisted learning facilitator, and we're housed here at Islamic Itagoning in Wiikwemkoong unceded territory. And here we have 6 horses. We have Willow and Cash, domestic horses, American quarter horse, and Appaloosa mare. And we just introduced 4 Ojibwe spirit ponies in June of 2004, and we've been in operation probably for the last 3 years here in Wiikwemkoong. So grateful to offer this experience for our youth so that they can learn about the horses and learn to connect with them. So we've had different youth come here, and a lot of them are looking for something to help them. And one in particular that I think about is one young girl who had talked about serious depression and suicide, and we just hold space for them, and we just sat in a circle, and the horses kind of bring out that conversation. And my Cash, who is an 18-year-old American quarter horse, came up to her. She was sitting on a chair, and he licked the back of her neck. He was just reassuring her that she's going to be okay. After every session, they say, "I want a horse."
Hi, my name is Daisy, and working with the horses is great. I feel really comfortable, but at first I was really afraid of the horses, but you just get used to them. Coming here is really great. You can get a connection with the horses, and it's really fun here.
So what keeps me motivated and hopeful is that we brought something very special for the youth in our community. I'm grateful to the participants who come out and the community who supports me. So one of the activities that we do here is that first when we get started, we usually are in our teepee or in the house. We have an opening circle, and that is to get us grounded. We introduce each other. We have a smudge. I usually have an elder present to open us up in a prayer. We get to know each other. We might share a little bit about ourselves and why we're here.
Hi, my name is Jesse. Working with the horses means a lot to me and to others. When I come around the horses and do programs here, it makes me feel comfortable and safe, and it brings healing to me.
This summer, we're going to be doing some grief workshops, sessions for our community members who are struggling with their loss of their loved one, suffering from addictions. Those people need support, and here it's a safe space for them to do that. I'm just so happy and thankful that we have so many community members that are open to the healing.
Thank you for the Healing Fund.
Thank you to the Healing Fund.
We're so grateful to the Healing Fund for supporting us with that.
I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint.
While Joni is getting that ready for us to look at, I have something to share. I found why we chose the Healing Fund for the UCW. We chose the Healing Fund to support, to live out our step of the United Church of Apology for the Indigenous People of 1986. And the apology of former students of the United Church Indian residential schools and to their families and communities. It was our way of reaching out to the families that we have hurt.
Thanks for that, Barb. So these are some thank you notes that we received from both the Regina Native Outreach Ministries and the Fort McKay Métis Nation. The reflections group, I thought the kids saying thank you in the video was their addition to this slide. So one of the things that we come and how could your congregation, how could your community of faith, um, support the justices and and healing of Indigenous people in ways as UCW is supporting the Healing Fund. So I come up with a little list of attending your local UCC events related to reconciliation because you're going to learn about the people there. And I must say that, you know, what you learn in one area is not going to be the same thing you learn in the other because the West Coast, the nations out on the West Coast are going to be different and they have different teachings from the people that are Haudenosaunee in the Six Nations territory. No different from the Algonquins, the Crees, the Inuits. Every nation has their own teachings. Every community have their own ways of doing things as well. So it's important not to just say like, oh, I know them, they're Indigenous, and just think you know it all from all across. But no, that's not how it goes. It's just, you need to take that time to learn and acknowledge those communities that are within that area of where you're at. Join open community events hosted by local Indigenous communities, agencies, and organizations. So if you're in the city, there's always huge things happening in the cities. Toronto has the Native Friendship Center. Every large city across Canada has a friendship center. A lot of their programs are open to community, non-Indigenous people as well. There's always powwows, round dances and storytellings, and being at the fire is a big thing in the wintertime all across we call Indian country, all across the country. Those things are really powerful because the wintertime is the time to tell stories. In the summertime, you don't bring those spirits alive of whatever stories you're sharing. That's the time to do it in the winter. And they do a lot of praying and a lot of grief. Healing at those round dances because that's the time to do those things too. So there's a lot of cultural teachings. It's not just putting on an event because we want to sing and dance. There's a lot of things that happen spiritually at those events. Visit the UCC bookstore. There's Indigenous authors. Adele has information on her slide deck in regards to these the books as well. Orange Shirt Sunday, which is new. United Church has acknowledged in 2025 that the Sunday before TRC Day, the Orange Shirt Day on the September 30th, so the Sunday before, UCC has designated that as Orange Shirt Sunday. So it's a time for UCC to come together and reflect, to honor and remember those that didn't make it home and those that are continuing with their healing journey of the traumas inflicted by the residential schools. And that's also a day I encourage, UCCs. That's a day that, that reconciliation and that giving could happen. If there's any collections for that day, to consider the Healing Fund. And give to the Healing Fund and its special initiative supported by the UCW. I don't know if you have other suggestions, Barb, but those were the ones that I've
No,
come up with.
yeah.
So this is if you want to support the Healing Fund and the UCW, um, I don't know if they're still accepting checks. I think they're still accepting checks. There's a new address that we have, and it's could be posted. I believe it's online on the website. I don't know exactly the new address, but when you do submit a check or you go to the online link for the Healing Fund, there's a spot on the form. You could just write NUCW um, for the Healing Fund, and then that tracks the gifts that are specifically to through the UCW woman. So that's that. And I believe that's the last bit of my presentation. If anybody has questions. I want
Carol?
to say, yep, sorry.
Carol?
Joni, when you said the address, Adele, you might be able to tell me, but I got an email from Angie, Church and Mission, that the church for the next year will still be using the 3250 Bloor Street address. not the new one, or not the temporary address. Am I correct?
Yes, feel free to direct your mail to the same place and it will get to where it needs to be.
Thanks, Adele.
Do we still put Suite 200 or just 3250?
I think still put Suite 200 and just write really clearly the United Church of Canada so people know where it's going to.
All
No
right.
other
Well,
questions?
sorry. Thank you everyone for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk about the Healing Fund and UCW and the partnership that we have with them. I'm really grateful for the UCW in supporting Indigenous healing initiatives, such as the ones that we've listed, and going forward with a couple of more that we get to select before the ending of this partnership. We don't hope to fully end our partnerships and that we do continue to work together. And I do continue to, see and meet a lot of views along this journey as well. If you ever have any questions, you could just do healing at unitedchurch.ca. That goes directly to me. But Adele will also know how to connect with me as well.
Wonderful. Many thanks to Joni and Barbara for leading us in this engaging time and for sharing so much about the Healing Fund programs and initiatives and all the work that the UCW is doing. So many thanks for that. And thanks to everybody for coming today. I'm adding into the chat just a brief survey. If you're able to take that away and just fill out some reflections about today, that would be wonderful. So that's in the chat. And we'll close off our time together with one more video and one more short video and a time of prayer to close our time. So many thanks for being here. And please feel free to take away that survey. So I know Joni had mentioned the question about books. So just a notation about books here. There are several books that are available from the United Church bookstore, including some that are particularly focused on Indigenous ministries. So one example is a brand new book from former moderator Carmen Lansdowne, which is called Wearing a Broken Indigenous Heart on the Sleeve of Christian Mission. So that may be one book to pick up and there are several others that are listed there. And if you choose to order 2 or more books from the bookstore and use the discount code 40 days, you would receive a discount of 20%. So you're welcome to order books from the United Church Bookstore. So as we close our time, one more video. This one comes from Witten Daly. We're showcasing these 2 videos this week, and then we'll close with a prayer from him. And after that, we'll just say our blessings. Thank you.
I am Black. I've always known this, of course, but I didn't truly know it until I came to Canada over 6 years ago. Back home in Jamaica, I never had to see myself primarily through the lens of race. I didn't carry the weight of stereotypes or walk around anticipating prejudice. But that changed when I migrated. I came full of energy, hope, and purpose, ready to plant roots and thrive. I chose Canada over the United States because I believed it was more inclusive and less racially charged. But I was reminded of a Jamaican proverb, "No swap black dog for monkey," which means don't trade one problem for something worse. The racism I hoped to avoid was there too, just quieter, more polite. And that realization was disheartening. One of my first encounters happened in my building, and the second at work. I was waiting for the elevator with my laundry basket. A white woman approached, but stood far away. When the elevator came, she said, "I'll catch the next one." It happened again. Same woman. This time, the elevator was empty. Still, "I'll catch the next one." I tried to explain it away. Maybe it was a gender thing. But then I saw her ride comfortably with other men, just not black men. At work, I was the only black person on staff. At first, things seemed fine, but then came the microaggressions, the condescending tones, the subtle dismissals. I shared ideas that were brushed aside only for them to be reintroduced later by white colleagues and praised as new. I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe I wasn't clear. Maybe it was just office politics. But the pattern was too consistent. So yes, now I know I'm black. Not because of my skin, but because of how I am seen. To be seen through suspicion, dismissal, or polite distance is to carry a burden I never knew before.
So thank you to Witten for those words. Thank you once again to Joni and Barbara for leading us in this engaging session today. And let us close with prayer, a prayer that was written by Witten. Creator God, we praise you for having created each of us in your image, beautiful and loved. Yet in a world broken by division, we confess the deep pain caused by racism, both seen and unseen. In our prayer, we remember the weight carried by those among us who are judged not by their character, but by the color of their skin. We grieve the subtle wounds, the distant glances, the unspoken exclusions, the stolen credit, and the silent dismissals we must bear. Open our hearts, O God, to know as you know. God of time, may this journey of 40 days be one of honest reflection and holy disruption. Stir in us the courage to face uncomfortable truths. Grant us the will to listen with humility and to stand boldly against injustice. Heal what has been broken. Restore dignity where it has been denied. Teach us to move in solidarity with each other, not as saviors, but as neighbors, kinfolk, and co-creators of a better world. In the name of the one who breaks every chain, we do pray. Amen. Amen, and thanks and blessings to all.
Miigwech.